Hey everybody, it's Jules and I want to welcome you back to the podcast. We have a special guest, Ian Townsend, today. We'll just break the ice. You just go ahead and tell me who you are, who you work for, what your position is.
Ian Townsend, work for the Lathrop Company, and I'm in business development over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was your first introduction to fifth year?
So my intro was lunch with Bill, my general manager, and Jim Pollitt, in which they're friends. And so I go to this lunch. I was like, hey, I'm going to see my friend Jim. I'm like, okay, I'll go too. And we're eating lunch, and Jim just starts talking about this program he's coming up with, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, Jim, where do you need me? I want to help. I was so excited because I really believe in just his vision and what this program can do for a community. You fill in gaps, so yeah.
What do you think the program can do for the community?
When you give the kind of exposure to young people like this program does, it takes away a lot of the anxiety, the second guessing, like it's just, it really helps them transition into the working world. So. Yeah,
that's fantastic. What were your initial expectations of fifth year, having a fifth year intern maybe, and what surprised you?
Honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. And, I remember, we got our first couple of fifth year folks, and I was out in the project, I'm in the trailer, and they're like, oh, we got some, they call it externs next week coming. And I'm like, what is that? Like, I didn't know what it was, but they got out there and they were great. And there was curiosity that I saw in those young folks. And I said, you know what? Well, come on, let me show you some stuff. Right. We actually we hired a fifth year student, the first group. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about Taryn and kind of what that experience was like?
So Taryn was funny, right? So Taryn gets out there, and you could imagine this is like a construction site. And Terrence he's kind of timid, and at first he adjusted well, and so we got him exposed to different trades out there and kind of, help him figure out what it is, or if he wanted to even be in construction. And, he kind of latched on to the carpenters, and like I said, we ended up hiring him. He was fun to have out there.
Yeah. That's great. How does that kind of affect your business? Is there like an advantage to bringing in a fifth year intern and then hiring them after the program, or does it help your bottom line in a sense?
What I would say is, fifth year, and it's not just Lathrop, right? I think as any company, when you have the opportunity to bring somebody in and expose them to how you're making sausage within your business, and they're not technically hired yet, like you get to test them out, they get to test you out, like I think it's amazing. And what happens is when you have that testing period, is like once you hire this person, they are so much more valuable because they've been exposed to your organization. They're so much more valuable because now they're starting, but they know the systems, they've met the people, and they're more prepared to get going. So
yeah, that's incredible. What do you think, would you say that fifth year students come in with a certain skill set that maybe you don't see people having that come in off the street?
By the end of that first year, those folks are ready. Eye contact, handshake, like they were ready to take on the world. You could see the difference. So I will say, after that first year, they're definitely more prepared than a lot of other young people out here. And I think it has a lot to do with the exposure that they get. When you can hop around, think about that. As a young person, you get to hop around the business community, business to business, meet all these different people, all these different decision makers, right? And then you get hired by one of them, and then, you go in that business, and not only do they have relationships inside of your company, they've got relationships all over town, right?
Right.
And I think that's priceless. Here's something to consider too, and I think this is the most important thing when you talk about the community at large, right? Is when you take these young folks under your wing in the business community and you take them around and they get to meet everybody. Now they feel welcome. Now they feel included. Now they feel that they have a reason to stay here in Toledo. Think about it. They're 18. The community has spent 18 years investing into this individual. And then when you take and you put them, and some of them I get, they're 19, 20 years old. But my point is they've been here all this time. The Toledo raised them, okay? And then they actually want to be here. That's a difference maker. It's different when people want to be here. And I think that engagement and that exposure is what does it, right?
Yeah, they're continuing to see just all the opportunities that Toledo has.
Well, and I can't tell you how many times, like, people will say, "Oh, I didn't even know we had this downtown." You know, people, and it's here. You know, there's things here, and it's just it's a matter. Again, you got to engage your environment and your surroundings.
Yeah. So outside of the internships, what are things that you've maybe done with the fifth year students that I know you did site visits. I know you've done some job shadows. If you want to kind of talk to maybe even students that aren't interested in construction.
Man, listen here. I'm making alchemists. All right. So no, I had, so Robert Cole, and then I had Ocean Hayes. It's Ocean Hayes, right? I ain't talking Ocean in a minute, but so those two, so everybody came over for the site visit in our office, right? And I told them, like, here, do it now. Get me on LinkedIn. Get me on Facebook. Here's my number. Gave them all cards, all that good stuff. Well, those two called me. They took me up on it, right?
Okay.
And, it was one of those things where, we would talk and I kind of got a feel for, because the first year I didn't have an opportunity to do that. It was like, let me figure this out, right? So the second year I kind of understood the program. This year I understand the program a little better. And as I'm, interacting with Robert and Ocean, I was like, it'd be a good book that's all about what they're doing right now, The Alchemist. And so, and I gave them, so I had them both download the Audible app, and then I gifted them The Alchemist. And so, when they were done, I probably had 3-hour conversations with both of them.
Really?
About The Alchemist, yeah. And it's all about just finding yourself and figuring out your purpose in life. And I think that has a lot to do with, the fifth year program. So hopefully I'll do it again next year because I think it's a great book. I think it's a book that everybody should read.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
What makes you personally interested in taking that time to talk to the students and kind of invest in them?
I'm from Toledo. You know what I mean? I was in the military. Y'all know that, but I came home for this, right? It's like I said, and so Robert, it's so funny. He grew up probably three blocks away from where I grew up.
No way.
And that's when we really connected. We were sitting at Poco Piatti and we were talking, and I'm just looking at him like, oh man, I gotta pull him in. So that one was kind of personal to me.
Maybe can you share a moment where a student made an impact or exceeded expectations?
It's kind of crazy. I remember Dean Monsky came in for this year's group, and he came to speak to the group. And this is the first time I'm meeting the second year, fifth year students. And Dean was giving a speech about the importance of, having contacts, relationships, networks, and showing up, right? So Dean goes quiet for a second, and there goes Robert in the back. He said, "You got a card?" And so you remember earlier I'm saying these kids, when you first meet them, they're kind of timid, whatever, like Robert just out the gate. Let me get his card right now. And I just and it's funny because when he did that, I said, oh, he's coming with me. Yeah. And Rob, you look at him out there now, and that dude is thriving, and he's met all these people. He's loving the relationships. And it's the thing about Robert too is just, the more I get to know him, it's he's a genuinely good person, right? So then let's go back to, okay, what does it do for the community? Now he wants to be here, okay? A good person who wants to be here, let's keep him here.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know that we touched on this necessarily, but how has partnering with Fifth Year impacted your organization?
So I would say it when you think about workforce development, it gives you great insight on it gives you get the pulse of the young people real time, right? And so now, because you get that, now you have insight on maybe some things that you could do to kind of adjust to the next generation, because you see articles all the time. Oh, these young folks, they don't want to work, they don't do that. And it's just like, listen, man, technology has moved so fast over the past 20 years. You can't expect these young folks to come into these environments the way we did, right? It's just, I mean, these folks, they're born with computers in their hands. It's different. And I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but to sit back and think that you don't have to adjust and these folks are just going to come in and do it how it's always been. It's like, no, they have access to Google. They have access now to AI. So you can't treat them like a mushroom, keep them in the dark and feed them, you know what? You know what I'm saying? Like, no, they're so much smarter than what we were because of the technology. And so we have to, one, accept that. And then I think from there, you adjust, you know, and I think that kind of helps with, you know, when you start thinking about from a business perspective, the workforce development aspect, you will have to adjust.
Yeah. What are some of those practical adjustments that maybe your company or your industry is making?
Well, I think honestly, it's soft skills. You know,
Right.
It's one of those things that's coming back up in a lot of conversations. And you know, I think Fifth Year, you, Erica, you guys do a great job, you know, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about when I said you first meet them and then you look at them at the end of the year. And it's just like, honestly, that helps so much.
Yeah.
Just being easy to work with and being able to communicate. You know what I mean? That's important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Going back to Taryn, he was one of our students last year from the beginning to the end. We're just like, who is this kid? Like, he really, truly changed so much.
He did.
And
He did.
just to see his maturity and growth over the year was something that we definitely underestimated with the program. Was just kind of how much they mature and develop. It's been my favorite part to see. So, yeah. What advice would you give to a student entering Fifth Year?
Oh, man. Take full advantage. No sleep, no days off, right?
Yeah.
You know, when you have, here's the thing, and I'll be honest in saying this. If I were in their shoes at 18 years old, I would need that same advice, because I don't think they understand, like, not their parents, not their uncle, cousin, somebody who's talking to them, like the individual, they don't understand how valuable this program is. When you know, like Robert one time, he's like, man, I'm working with the CEO. I'm like, yeah, it's good. I said, take as many notes as you can. Ask a bunch of questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Act like Macaulay Culkin on Uncle Buck. You know, just ask questions, right? Because that's your job right now. And so, you know, it's just, look, take advantage. Go hard, because, you know, those relationships, they will matter after Fifth Year is done.
Why should other companies get involved in the program? And you kind of touched on that, but if you have anything else to add to that.
It's good. And I think it goes back to this program. I think it helps retain the investment that the community has made in these young folks, right? And I think we need that if we want to see continued progress in the economy here in Toledo and Northwest Ohio, right? You want people to want to be here,
Right.
right? And I think the engagement that you get with Fifth Year, from, you know, student or young person to business, that engagement and that exposure is so important. Like, I wish we could put like 50 students in the program every year. I think is priceless. It's priceless. And that's how you get these young folks to want to be here. I grew up in Toledo. I work in downtown Toledo now. I didn't spend time in downtown Toledo growing up. You know what I mean? For whatever reason, it doesn't matter. But, you know, when you you recognize that you don't have that interaction with a particular person or a particular group or whatever. It's like, go engage, right? Expose them to something different. Make them want to stay. But if you don't expose them, they're gonna run up out of here.
I think that's all we have. Thanks for being here.
Right. I know I'm silly, man. I just,